All right. I want to talk about The Chamber. Once again, such an amazing reading experience. I can't really express how much I enjoyed this book. And I mean, psychological thriller, I guess if you have to put it in something, is that what you do?
Yeah, yeah.
So what led you to this book as I guess this is the ninth one.
That's the ninth one. And first of all, I just want to say that, as you know, I'm a big fan.
Oh
So it
man.
means, especially with this photo on the back, how do you get one of those? So, so it means a lot that you say that. It really does. It means a lot. But the chamber came around because I'm fascinated by secret worlds, secret hidden worlds. So that includes the worlds of espionage, certain parts of the military. It includes certain like diplomatic worlds, and it also includes things like saturation diving. And as soon as I saw the world of saturation diving, this apex of the diving world, and how extreme their living conditions were, and how they have to stay calm under pressure, I was hooked. And I just went down a rabbit hole of research for about a year. And I was like, I need to set a thriller in this setting because it's the most tense scenario even before anything goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like a lot can go wrong. How did you find out about it? How were you aware of, did you talk to somebody and it sparked the idea of, hey, I could set this sort of a suspenseful thriller in those conditions. And we can talk a little bit about what that entails because it's right here on the back, so it doesn't give too much away, but especially the first thing that happens, but maybe the second thing happens too. But where did you get that idea that was like, oh, I'm going to write a book that takes place? It's essentially, for those people who are listening that are familiar with TV, and I just learned about this from working on the Terminal List for the first time, a bottle episode. So a bottle episode, when someone mentioned that, I said, well, what is that? And they told me that it's when an episode of TV takes place like in a room, in a bank vault, in something that locks down the cast, essentially for the most part in one location, which does a couple different things. It allows you to prep for the rest of the season somewhere else, and then it cuts back on production costs and that sort of thing because it's confined to a room or a bar or whatever it might be. And so this is essentially a bottle episode, is what I was thinking as I was reading it, which is fascinating. So how did all this come about?
I think at first it came about just because of my geeky
Right.
interest in diving watches and the
I
fact that
was going to
there
ask
you
you
go, there you
where
go,
that. Yeah.
there you
Nice.
go, sibling
Yes.
watches. And is that new? Is that fairly new?
Fairly new. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's great. That's the military one, right? The FXD.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully I'm gonna go visit those guys here. I think at the end of October, but say hello to the Tudor folks over there. And I want to get to the vintage watch
Yeah,
repairing.
we'll do that.
But yeah, before we do that,
So it came from just being a little bit of a nerd on watches and hearing this phrase saturation diving and thinking, what is that exactly? And then just doing a little research on YouTube, first of all, just not thinking this would be a book, just because I was intrigued and just seeing what these guys live through. Let me set the picture for your audience. It's kind of, imagine you're on a ship, a diving vessel in the middle of the North Sea, and you go down below deck and there is a gleaming stainless steel chamber the size of like a minibus, and the hatch is open and you slither through, and the hatch gets locked behind you, and inside there are 5 other professional divers, and you just see bunks, and you see like a little table, and it's tiny, and you're pushing past each other. They're generally big dudes and they're pushing past each other, and then this chamber gets pressurized, so you're now breathing helium or heliox instead of air, and everybody's voices go very high, and it gets very hot, very close, very humid, and you're going to be in there for 28 days living together. And if anything goes wrong, it's going to take at least 4 days to depressurize so that somebody can help you. And these people, they cannot get out. If something goes wrong, they have to help themselves. They have to be self-reliant. And then the next morning at 4 a.m., imagine you go through to a diving bell and you get dropped down through the center of the ship down to the seabed, 350 feet below. And when you're down there, it's much smaller, this diving bell. It's the size of a small elevator in a bad hotel. And you look through the porthole and it's dark outside because you're so deep. And then your buddy puts your diving helmet on, called a hat, and it weighs like 20 kilos, so it crushes down on you. And then to equalize, normally you pinch your nose, but you can't do that with a helmet on, so you have to ram your face into the front of the helmet. That's how claustrophobic this is. And that's all before A, you get wet and you start work on the oil pipelines, and B, before the first murder.
Yeah, it is crazy just hearing about what these guys go through, because I know about saturation diving but not in this detail. And certainly I never thought that people I guess I never took that next step to really research it, that they were down there or could be down there for so long. And like that part just makes me, I mean, I'm really glad that I didn't go to the STV team, so little mini sub teams and the SEAL teams, because if you're not a pilot, then you're just in the back of that thing for hours and hours and hours on end, just waiting to get to your location to go off and do whatever mission you need to do. But you're just back there in the dark. And like you're talking about equalizing those things, depending on the pilot, like if they're not staying at a steady depth, if they're like porpoising or doing whatever, like you're just clearing. So all you know is that you're not staying at a certain depth. It's all black. You're breathing that whatever kind of gas you're breathing down there. And it sounds awful. I mean, you're like in a torpedo, essentially, just holding on until you get where you're going. And sometimes they bump. If they're going into a harbor, you don't even know what you bumped into. You're kind of like trying to think like, what hour is this? How long has passed? But that sounds awful.
This is why you're more qualified to write this book than I am. I think you know more about this world, and I think those guys are wet, right? They're in their wetsuits.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
Yeah, which is another level of craziness. And the fact that when I researched this, they're just general people working in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caspian Sea and the Red Sea and the North Sea, working on oil infrastructure. It's a very intense job. They get very well paid. But then a lot of them are ex-Navy clearance divers as well. So some of the saturation divers that I read about, they were like, yeah, it's an intense job. It's a tough job. But when I was in the Falklands conflict, I was diffusing unexploded ordnance on a ship in a hot war. Like that's a whole other level of pressure.
Right.
So yeah, they have the right temperament for the job.
Yeah, I love how you wove all that stuff in here, the backgrounds of each of the characters. Shows where you can come from to get to this place. That's another thing I found fascinating, is how did these people all end up in this place at this time together in this confined space? Like that's kind of an interesting thing to think about as well. But I love all the different backgrounds and how they started thinking about each other's backgrounds and all the rest of it. But when you first,
it's an interesting bunch of characters. They're kind of like outlaws.
Yeah,
they're offshore people, so they kind of like, there's a mixture of half ex-military and half welders and builders, construction people. Mm-hmm. But they all have that thing of just being able to get along in a small confined space. Like they trust each other. There's that level of trust, and that's what I wanted to play with. Like, can you actually trust each other? It's one of the people in the chamber doing something bad, or is it someone outside, some of the support people you have to rely on? And that's one thing that I find personally complicated, is relying on other people. Being able to trust other people who are not your brothers, like that you train with, but the people outside. Sometimes the main character freaks out a little bit if she sees a new face outside, because nobody's vouched for them. She hasn't worked with them before. And I find that dynamic interesting. Also, after maybe 2 or 3 days of not sleeping and not eating, can you trust yourself?
Oh yeah. I mean, it all plays into why you live where you live, not relying on other people. This just the way you describe it, it's almost like they're in a space station. There are a lot of similarities between being up there and then being underwater as well. And those tight. There you go. Nice. I like it. Yeah.
Big inspiration for this book. Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. Now I see it.